today's video, we're going to cover backlighting and how we can use this technique to create some great effects for our portrait photography. Backlighting refers to a lighting technique where a light source is positioned behind or to the rear of the subject facing towards the camera. The light's facing towards the camera. Now, in portrait photography, this can be one of the most powerful tools in your lighting arsenal. By placing the light behind your subject, you create a highlight that outlines their hair or contours, making them kind of stand out against the background. This also adds a sense of depth and dimension to your images, making them feel more dynamic and engaging. All right, so what is a backlight? Okay, this can be defined as a light source positioned behind or to the rear of the subject. It adds a highlight effect around the hair and the contours, kind of outlining your subject, and it creates a visual separation from the background. People like to define backlighting in all different kinds of ways, but in photography, it doesn't necessarily mean a light coming directly from behind the subject straight at the camera. Today, we're going to use backlighting as an umbrella term to mean any light that's used anywhere behind the subject to illuminate them from mostly the backside toward the camera. So let's talk about different types of backlighting effects, and we're going to start with kind of an unusual one for these days, and that's halo. And this is a backlight that creates a halo effect around the subject. Now, this is there's different types of halo effects, but in this case, I wanted to talk about kind of an old school, going way back to the 80s, maybe the late 70s, the 80s, and this is where you're basically lighting up the hair and just creating a halo effect that way. In this example here, we're using sunlight, natural light behind the subject. The sun is just in the right place to light up the subject's hair here. This is taken outdoors on the street in the neighborhood, and it's really a beautiful picture. This makes the hair look a little translucent, maybe a little ethereal. Got kind of a light, airy, sunny picture throughout. Then we got this example of Tony Price, a musician in Austin, Texas. I took this in 1991, and we're going for a straight up, light in the hair coming in from behind look. And this is a very, at this point, it's an outdated look. I wouldn't do this on purpose unless you were trying to create some kind of a retro effect. But back then, it was still on the edge of okay, and I wanted to try it, and this is what we got now. The light is coming in from directly behind Tony in this shot, probably just 2 or 3 feet away, directly behind her head, pointed straight towards her, and that access right through into the camera. And then we've got a key light, of course, on her to illuminate the front side. And interestingly enough, since it was way back then, I did this with a set of Novatrons, very similar to this one that I recently found on eBay. Now, this isn't something I'd use these days, and I'd recommend probably not use it. It's very antiquated, and some might say that there are some safety issues involved. I don't know. That's just what I've heard on the internet. I've never had a problem with these lights when I used them. I do not use them anymore. I think we have a lot better options these days. Battery-powered strobes that are lighter and more portable and just easier to manage. But I thought I'd mention that. All right, so this is an illustration how you would actually achieve this effect if you wanted to. And as you can see here, how I described it, just place a flash. In this illustration, I'm using a speed light as our flash, and this is probably what I do these days. Just use a flash behind the subject, light up her hair, backside of her head. You'll get that halo effect. And on the front side, I've got a softbox and a strobe as the main light. Okay, now let's get into a hair light. A hair light is a backlight specifically focused on illuminating the hair, adding separation between the subject and the background. Now, you might say, hey, Ed, the last example that you just showed, that was a hair light because basically it was lighting up the hair. This is different. This is more traditional. And all we're trying to do with a light like this is not create some kind of electric effect. It's just a nice, subtle, sometimes, way to add a little highlight to the hair at the top of the head. And you're going to get an effect like this in a traditional portrait lighting setup. And you're going to do this lots of times with a classic 3-point light setup like this, where you've got the key light, a fill light, and a hair light. And I think over here I even added a little bit of a background illumination. For a shot like this, lots of times the hair light's going to come in from directly above the subject, maybe a little softbox to diffuse it a little bit. But you can also do a good hair light effect like this, where it's not, you don't have a dedicated softbox on a boom coming in from above. You've got just maybe a bare flash to the side, and this is how I did that shot. It's just another key light up in the front, illuminating the subject as you normally would, and then just hit her coming in from slightly to the side and rear to get that hair light effect. And that's how you achieve something like this. And sometimes what you're doing with a setup like this is you're getting 2 for 1, because not only can you get some illumination in the hair, but a little bit of what I'd call a rim or a kicker light. And this is a type of backlighting that creates a narrow highlight or rim around the edges of the subject, often emphasizing the outline of the body. So this provides a highlight around the contours of either one or both sides, depending on how many lights you're using. And you'll get an effect like this. On the left, we've got a boudoir shot. So that backlight is coming in from the left, from camera left, rear of the subject. And of course, we have our main light, our key light up here in the front. And on the image on the right, it's just the reverse setup of that same lighting scenario, where you've got the key light over here on camera left, and on camera right, you've got a strip softbox illuminating her. And we got that nice contour highlight on her arm there. And this is how we'd set something like that up. Now this, again, this setup can be reversed to what you're seeing in my illustration here, but you've got a strip softbox on one side, and as you can see, even in the illustration, the contours are illuminated, and so is the hair in this case, and you've got the key light over here on the right-hand side. Going back to the boudoir shot, I thought I'd just give you an actual, the diagram of how this was actually done. And I created these illustrations to show that what I'm actually using here is a simple umbrella for the key light on one side, and that other light, as you can see, is coming in from the other side. So a simple shot, nice effect. And like I said before, you can also use more than one light and create those contour highlights on both sides of the subject like this. That way you can get something that looks a little more like this. It really pops the subject out from the background. Now, as we're talking about this, there are some things that you might want to avoid or even try to do on purpose. So, one person's mistake is another person's happy accident, or even an intentional effect. So what can you do here? Maybe avoid, maybe try to do on purpose. Blowing out the detail with a backlight, lens flare, and underexposing the subject to create a silhouette. So let's take a look at those. All right, so blowing out the edges. In this shot on the left, I have a true backlight. So what I'm using back there is I'm just blasting that background with light, and it's coming around the subject, and you've got sort of a wraparound effect, and that gives you that very light, kind of glowy effect around the edges. And on the right-hand side, I've actually got a couple of umbrellas blasting straight at the camera. The subject is standing between the camera and those lights coming straight back at the camera. And you've got an effect like this. Lens flare. This is another thing that you can avoid. You can prevent this from happening. If you've got those lights coming in from behind the subject towards the camera, lots of times those lights are actually going to be somewhat visible to the lens from the lens position. That's going to give you some flare. You can flag those off by blocking the pathway from those lights directly into the lens while you're still getting that effect on the subject. But if you don't, or you don't want to, you can get this lens flare effect, which is kind of cool. A lot of people like to use it outdoors with sunlight coming in from that angle. You can get those neat sunlight flare effects. And then, of course, there's a silhouette. If you've got a strong light coming in from behind the subject, maybe use it this way. Just underexpose the subject. Don't use a key light or any illumination on the front side. And make sure your exposure settings are such that your subject is going to go dark while your background is just blasted with light. Now, if you do it just the right way and you've got your exposure settings set correctly, then you can avoid that wraparound light effect, that glow around the edges, and just have a nice clean silhouette. Something a little like this. Now, in order to accomplish backlighting, you're probably going to need to employ off-camera flash. You're going to need to learn how to do your lighting setups in such a way that you can control different lights around your portrait scene. And I've got this free ebook that you can download right now. It's called a 10-minute guide to off-camera flash. This will put you on the fast track to learning how to use your flash units off the camera position. Now, along with that, I've also got the camera bag checklist, which is very handy if you're doing any shoots on location. Anytime you want to pack your camera bag and leave, you don't want to leave anything behind, and this will help you out with that. Photo shoot notebook sheets. This is a great way for you to diagram out your own lighting setups and keep them in sort of a journal format. And you can print out these sheets, as many as you want, and just start stockpiling them into your own lighting recipe book or journal. And there's a couple of model release templates in here too that can come in quite handy if you're working with models, or you just want to get someone's permission to use the photos that you took of them in various ways, like to promote yourself or to use in advertising. So yeah, go ahead and grab this set right now. There's a link down at the bottom. You can do that right away. And while we're on the topic, I've also got the Flash Photography for Portraits course. It's very popular. It's a complete, very comprehensive course on flash photography. You want to learn to do this quickly. This is the course for you. It also comes with a few bonuses like the 80-page guide to flash photography, which is my most popular ebook, and a 1-hour on-camera flash mini course. So if we all have to use our flash on our cameras sometimes, and if you want to get good professional looking results, especially for portraits, this little mini course will get you there right away. And we have a guide to booking clients. If you want to monetize everything that you learn in this course, that's a great place to start. Everything's lifetime access and self-paced, but you can probably finish everything up here in the same day. So this is, like I said, just a really good fast track to learning all about flash, everything you need to know to be successful with flash portraiture. All right, guys, I hope you found this video useful. Make sure that you subscribe, like, and leave a comment. That's about all I've got for you today. I'll see you next time.